Welcome to Zusan News Ghana. The National Democratic Congress sues the Attorney General and the Electoral Commission over the new voter register compilation. And the Attorney General and the EC have 14 days to file their responses. The suit seeks the following. An order from the Supreme Court directed at the EC to include all existing voter identification cards duly issued by the second defendant, EC, as one of the documents serving as proof of identification for registration as a voter for the purposes of public elections. A true and proper interpretation of Article 45 of the 1992 Constitution, on whether the EC has the constitutional power to, and can, compile a register of voters only once, and thereafter revise it periodically, as may be determined by law. A declaration on whether the EC can only revise the existing register of voters, and lacks the power to prepare a fresh register of voters, for the conduct of the December 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections. A declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of the provisions of the Constitution, specifically Article 51 read conjointly with Article 42 of the Constitution, the power of the EC to compile and review the voters' register must be exercised subject to respect for and the protection of the right to vote. A declaration that, upon a true and proper interpretation of the provisions of the Constitution, particularly Article 42, upon the registration of an issuance of a voter identification card to a person, that person has an accrued right to vote which cannot be divested in an arbitrary and capricious manner. A declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of the provisions of the Constitution, particularly Article 42 of the Constitution, all existing voter identification cards duly issued by the second defendant to registered voters are valid for purposes of identifying such persons in the exercise of their right to vote. A declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of the Constitution, specifically Article 42, the second defendant's purported amendment of Regulation 1 Sub-Regulation 3 of the Public Elections, Registration of Voters, Regulations, 2016, c. I-91, through the Public Elections, Registration of Voters, Amendment, Regulations, 2020 to exclude existing voter identification cards as proof of identification to enable a person apply for registration as a voter is unconstitutional, null and void and of no effect whatsoever. A declaration that the second defendant, EC, in purporting to exercise its powers pursuant to Article 51 of the 1992 Constitution to exclude the existing voter identification cards from the documents required as proof of identification to enable a person register as a voter without any justification is arbitrary, capricious, unreasonable and contrary to Article 296 of the 1992 Constitution. A declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of the Constitution, specifically Article 42 of the 1992 Constitution, proof of identification for registration as a voter should not be limited by the provisions of Public Elections, Registration of Voters, Amendment, Regulations, 2020. An order or orders as this honorable court would deem fit in the circumstances. Source: Daily Mail Ghana. Thank you for listening. Please share, like and subscribe.